This is Dubai's latest landmark.
An architectural marvel and immersive futuristic experience that was years in the making.
I'm Dan Murphy on assignment for CNBC at the Museum of the Future.
The museum showcases new technologies, a snapshot of what our future might be, and will host events centered around futurism and innovation. In this edition of CNBC On Assignment, we explore futuristic concepts, meet the creative director, and the architect behind this incredible building. Our first visit to the museum was to witness the incredible opening ceremony in February 2022. After Dubai's ruler, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, officially opened the museum, I caught up with Omar Al Olama, the UAE's Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence. What can you tell me about the Museum of the Future?
So I think to talk about the museum, we have to look at history first. We've seen throughout recent history that His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum launches an icon to support a vision. And in the 90s, His Highness had a vision to make Dubai a tourism capital for the world. And he launched with it an icon called the Burj Al Arab, the tallest hotel in the world, the best service you can ever find in a hotel, and really an embodiment of that vision. Today, fast forward 20 years after the launch of Burj Al Arab, Dubai was ranked in 2021 as the capital for tourism globally by TripAdvisor. We then saw His Highness announce a vision to make Dubai a business and finance capital. And with that, he announced the launch of a new project called the Burj Khalifa, which is the tallest tower in the world. And that icon represents his vision, that I don't want to be second or third, I want to be the best. And we saw that embodiment really manifest itself in Dubai's current standing as a finance and business hub, the best in the region, one of the best in the world, and one of the best quality of life that we've seen. Now, this monument is a monument that is the continuation of a new vision. A vision to make Dubai a science and tech hub, a talent hub for not just the region but for the world, and that we are going to shape the future from Dubai and we're going to export it for humanity everywhere. The most important aspect of this museum is this is a convening ground for the thinkers, for the innovators, for the technology leaders to come together and use this building as their hub. It is the hub of the greatest minds in the world, hopefully.
Look, it's a fascinating building. Really interested to see what's inside. Your Excellency, thanks for speaking with me.
Thank you very much for coming.
The museum is part of the Dubai Future Foundation, an initiative set up by the government of Dubai to increase collaboration between themselves, private sector organizations, startups, and thought leaders to accelerate and scale up new ideas, businesses, and technologies. I met with the foundation's CEO, Khalfan Belhoul. So how is the Museum of the Future going to support the efforts of the Dubai Future Foundation?
The Museum of the Future will catalyze imagination, it will catalyze future thinking, which will end up generating more and more ideas. It involves, obviously, the word future and museum is a very interesting combination because museums usually talk about the past, and when people go to typical museums, as good as they are, the formula is completely different because one, it's easier because things appreciate in value in time. The older it gets, the more interesting it gets in a typical museum, whereas in the Museum of the Future, you need to be really smart in becoming very future relevant, which means that your content should always be future relevant. And with the advancement of technology nowadays, whatever is futuristic today is probably obsolete in 6 months. So you need to be really smart in continuing to engage people with future relevant topics and helping people really go into a really far future to imagine how will things happen if we had, for example, ease of access to space, which we do at the moment in comparison to the past. So if we have that, what can we do with space and how can we leverage on experiments in space and the dream of living in different planets? So that's a future, but that's a far future, but it creates thinking. But then you also zoom down all the way to health-related matters and genome sequencing and DNA sampling, all the way to a very strong message in the museum that focuses on the human being and the importance of the human, because that's something that has been a core pillar of the past, and we knew that in the past the human was the driver, in the present the human is the driver, and the message in this museum is that the human, no matter how much there was advancement of technology, will always be the driver of the future mandate.
And for people who are coming in to visit, is there one thing that you would like them to walk away with? One learning, one experience, one particular moment that perhaps would inspire? What's the one thing?
So for me, the message that I always love to send out is the focus on the human. And yes, technology will play a big role. And yes, cryptocurrency will play a big role. Yes, robotics and AI will replace jobs. And this tends to put some fear into human beings, and that's natural. But if we go to the past decades, we realize that human beings have always adapted to advancements.
Much of the museum focuses on an idea of what the future might look like, but one floor is dedicated to some of the technologies and innovations that could soon play a role in our lives. Appropriately named Tomorrow Today, the exhibition features concepts from around the world. And to learn more, I met with Hana Al-Amhari.
I'm the Associate Partnership Manager at the Museum of the Future, and I look after the partnerships here at the Tomorrow Today exhibit. So we are working with several partners from the government and the private sector and even global companies that we are addressing challenges that we might face in the future, and how are we tackling these challenges by presenting solutions and that are being displayed in the Tomorrow Today exhibits.
What can you tell me about some of the technologies, some of the exhibits that are actually on display here?
The Tomorrow Today exhibits here that are displaying very interesting topics that can tackle so many challenges, such as the future of transport, the future of energy, the future of sustainable buildings, some social and political challenges that will affect the human quality of life.
Some of the concepts displayed here could be rolled out within the next decade and shape our everyday lives. However, the rest of the museum looks much further ahead. After the break, we do just that, as I take a trip to the year 2071 with the museum's creative director to see what the future might look like.
The main thing that we are trying to express in the museum is that a better future is possible, but not without your help.
Welcome back to CNBC On Assignment and to Dubai's groundbreaking Museum of the Future.
The museum offers a fully immersive trip to the future, starting in this lift which transports visitors to 2071, the UAE's centenary year. Creative director Brendan McGettrick gave me a special guided tour. So we are on floor number 1 of a 3-floor experience here at the Museum of the Future. What can you tell me about some of what we're looking at right now?
Yeah, so this is OSS Hope. The idea here is that it's a space station. When you come to the museum, when you come to this floor, you're visiting it in the year 2071. And as you explore, you find out more and more about the things that are happening here, the people who are living and working here. And in the end, we hope that you'll apply to join and become one of the people living on this space station.
Okay, so 2071. Why has space been chosen as an experience for people to view here at the Museum of the Future?
Well, I think one of the reasons is that space is one of the sort of classic futuristic inspirational ideas. It's also a key area of engagement by the UAE. Obviously, as you know, I'm sure, they successfully launched a probe to Mars earlier this year. So we wanted to sort of channel that enthusiasm and kind of build up the sense of possibility of what space could be. And that's what we've tried to do. We tried to create a kind of experience which allows people to feel a sort of universal connection to a topic that we all share and an environment that we all share.
What can you tell me about some of the technologies that you have on display here and some of the ideas that you're ultimately trying to exhibit?
Sure. Well, right in front of us here is one of the key ideas and key technologies that we're emphasizing on this floor, which is really about the potential to harvest solar energy from space and beam it to Earth as a renewable energy source that the whole world can share. So what you see on this table are different components of a system that we've sort of invented or that we're proposing, which basically collects solar energy via a ring of solar panels around the moon, shoots it to Earth via satellites, and then shares it by a global grid all over the world.
Okay, so very futuristic. What are we looking at over here?
Yeah, so this is a totally different thing, and I would say an important point to make about the Museum of the Future is that although we are very futuristic, we've tried to make sure that there's a presence of the past. So this is part of that effort. This is basically a monument It's a gift of the people of the UAE to this space station, and it's in recognition of the shared sacrifice that people and also animals have made to our kind of collective effort to explore and inhabit space. So what this is a sort of clockwork representation of the solar system. Each planet is sitting on top of an astrolabe, which is a navigational device developed during the Islamic golden age of science. And so we wanted to make it clear that even in this sort of futuristic environment of a space station, there's a place to recognize the sort of timeless continuum of effort and knowledge and experimentation that is kind of necessary to create something like this.
And as creative director, what do you hope people who come and visit the museum will walk away with?
What I hope that they'll walk away with is a sense that the future is important and that they are important to it. The main thing that we are trying to express in the museum is that a better future is possible, but not without your help.
The next part of the experience brings us back down to Earth. Brendan, this floor is called the Heal Institute. What's the overall theme behind it?
Well, this floor is inspired by climate change, and the idea here is that it's a scientific institution that exists in the future to help repair the damage we've done to the natural world as a result of climate change.
Okay, so the key word there being heal.
That's right. So the idea is that we're applying emerging technologies such as synthetic biology and artificial intelligence to help repair ecosystems that have either been severely damaged or even collapsed because of climate change.
The theme continues next door and gives a snapshot of what could happen if we don't protect our planet and its inhabitants. Brendan, this room is incredible. What are we looking at here?
So this is the library. It's a vault of the genetic code of thousands of species from around the world.
Okay, so how many species are actually on display in this room right now?
In this room, there are 2,400 species.
Okay, and when we take a closer look at some of the species, what is the information that people will learn when they come into this room and take a look at some of these jars, I guess you call them?
Yeah, so these are specimens, and basically the way that you navigate this and explore it is with this device. It's called a biosynth. We created it for the museum.
A biosynth?
Yes.
Okay.
And basically it allows you to scan and also collect the genetic code of every specimen in the library.
Okay, so how does it work?
So basically all you need to do is point it at one of the species and press this button, and then you can collect its information. Do you want to try?
Okay, so let's take a look. So I point it like this, I hold onto the button, I can see it scanning on the screen there. This is an Arabian camel.
That's right.
Okay, there you go. And I understand it can also tell us a little bit about some of the species that are extinct.
Yeah, so one of the things, because the entire museum is taking place in the year 2071, we wanted to anticipate and encourage people to think about the possible effects of climate change. So we introduced a number of extinct species that are currently living but are severely endangered. So one of them, if you press here, is a bat that is on the verge of extinction, and we've anticipated being extinct, and that's why its jar glows red.
And Brendan, as new species are discovered, will we see more being added to the collection here?
Not only discovered, but also invented. One of the themes of this floor is synthetic biology, and what we want to encourage people to understand is that actually, through the combination of genetic code, new species are actually being created already today.
The final part of the experience offers a break from the many technologies in the museum and in our day-to-day lives.
So this is Al Waha. It's a kind of wellness center that we created for a sort of future in which we're even more technology dependent, information overloaded. So this is a place where you go to kind of break free from those things.
Okay, amazing room. And what is this?
Yeah, so this is basically one of the treatments that you can experience. It's called movement therapy. So maybe you just have a step on here.
Okay, wow. It's very spongy.
Yeah, so the idea here is that we're trying to sort of create a feeling of sand, that you're walking through sand, but also a look of walking through water.
I can't believe that. That's like, it's like being on a springboard almost.
Yeah, well, see, that smile is exactly what we were trying to achieve. It's designed to make you think about your body and not really think about your mind, and just sort of experience something physically. Be mindful of your feet, be mindful of the kind of experience you're having.
And you can also see when you move around, the light also shifts as well, which makes it an even more unique experience.
Yeah, so basically each person kind of creates their own little section, and even if the two of us stand together, we create a little sort of bubble together.
Oh, we do too, wow.
And this was, the idea here was to create a kind of way that transcends language to bring two people together, whether they know each other or not, and have a kind of shared moment.
So what's the idea behind putting, I guess you could call it a day spa in a museum?
Yeah, well, so this floor, like all the floors, is responding to actually contemporary issues. So the issue we wanted to talk about here is really technological dependency and information overload. So the idea is, in the future, we become even more connected to our devices, connected to the internet and things like this. So dedicated spaces like this allow you to disconnect. So this is a place where you come to disconnect from technology and reconnect to your mind, your body, and your spirit.
Is it really realistic, though, to expect people to have things like this in their own homes in the future? I mean, this seems like well into the future of anything that we could expect.
Well, I think that anything is possible. 50 years is a very long time. But what I would say is that this isn't designed for something you have in your home. It's actually a public space for people to come together. That's one of the things that we wanted to encourage with this, is that, although we maybe, particularly, in COVID environment, have been more and more mediated away from each other, in the future we want to encourage people to still be together, people that you know, people that you love, but also people that you don't know, and to create spaces for people to gather. And this is what this is.
Okay, so it's like a digital detox, if you will.
Yeah.
What does the name mean?
So Al-Waha means the oasis. So that's the idea. It's a kind of sanctuary from the digital world. It's a place where you come to reconnect to your senses, to reconnect to things which transcend technology and information.
Well, Brendan, I love the tour. Thanks so much for showing me around today.
My pleasure. Come back soon.
Still to come, I meet the architect behind this incredible building.
It's a steel diagrid. So that diagrid is almost like an egg. In other words, you get a certain strength in an egg because of its compressive and tension forces. So the whole structure is in the facade.
Dubai's Museum of the Future is a 78-metre high structure, and its unusual shape, known as a torus, is wrapped in bespoke stainless steel panels featuring calligraphic quotes from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, the ruler of Dubai himself. The building was designed by architect Sean Killer, who presented his concept to Dubai's government after a number of designers were asked to submit plans as part of a competition. I met Sean to hear more about his winning design.
Such a unique design. Why make it look like this?
So first and foremostly, the choice of the site required the building to go up. But some of the constraints of the site is that we have the elevated metro line, which is about 12 meters above the ground level. And in designing a museum, I didn't want it to be cut by the metro line. So I needed to lift the museum up, or the museum element of it, which is about 11,000 square meters of exhibition space. So I used all the car parking, the MEP plant spaces, the lobby, which is over 2,000 square meters, the auditorium, the pre-function, the shops, the restaurants, everything, which is about 20,000 square meters. I used that to create a big green hill, almost as if the earth had welled up and pushed, creating this hill to put the Museum of the Future on. But in doing so, it was bringing greenery back into the city. It's kind of replacing the greenery I took away when there were the trees around the car parks, and putting it into elevation, which you seldom see in particularly a city which is quite flat. So that greenery also reduces heat island effect within the city. It's bring bird life and everything around the museum, allows people to almost enjoy a park while they scale the slopes of the Museum of the Future. So if I get to the actual design of the museum itself, it's really a form which is parametrically designed in terms of its torus. And the void in the center of the building actually represents the unknown, what we don't know about the future. So that's the most powerful point of the Museum of the Future, is where are we going? And it's people who seek the unknown that invent new things and discover new things. And that has happened throughout time. So that's the representation of the void. And people who invent new things and discover and work towards humanity and improving, these elements then replenish the museum over time. And that fills the bulk then of the rest of the museum, which you see I think on your right. Those floors will constantly be, through time, actually be replenished.
What was the hardest part of pulling it all together?
There were so many challenges on this building. The calligraphy and the facade system is probably the most complicated that's ever been seen in the world, where every piece of calligraphy there is actually a window. And the facade system is 1.3 meters wide, with the structure in between. It really does look beautiful. It came together just perfectly, and even better than we had hoped.
Inside, Sean showed me the stunning top floor.
What can you tell me about this incredible space?
This is the level 7 of the Museum of the Future, and there are 7 levels in total. Each of the levels is 9 meters floor to floor, which is almost like 3 floors each, but this particular level is the highest. It's up to about 13 meters high in the center of the dome. So this is the very crest of the Museum of the Future. At the moment, Dubai Futures Foundation are using this for particular events, of which there's been quite a few of them been used already.
And what's holding us up right now? Because we're on the top floor, but this is floating, right?
Yes. So the design of the Museum of the Future is that the podium is a concrete structure, and the shear walls come up to a ring beam, which is a 2.5 meter by 2.5 meter ring beam that sits at the bottom on level 1 above the podium. And then from there is a start of a diagrid. It's a steel diagrid. So that diagrid is almost like an egg. In other words, you get a certain strength in an egg because of its compressive and tension forces. So the whole structure is in the facade, and there is no columns in the museum whatsoever. There is only the core and then the external diagrid. And what we did is we used the skin of the building to support the entire building, even with exhibition loading. So in many places we have up to 35 meters span across from one facade to the other facade, and we've got 2-meter trusses throughout all the floors, which are supporting all of the floors in the Museum of the Future and connecting them to the outside, and then those all the loads are then distributed down into the ring beam and then eventually down into the foundations.
I know it has been such a long journey to get to this point. How do you feel standing here today?
It's an incredible feeling, actually. I mean, from the very, very first sketch and doing it, there was a process where even within the 6 weeks of the competition, I had several sketches for 3 weeks and modeled them up and looked at them, and I didn't feel that they had hit the right vision for His Highness, and then scrapped them and started again with 3 weeks left. And actually that's where this building comes from, really. And then the making of it, or the designing of it took about 1.5 years, and spending that time of working with all the engineering companies and working with subcontractors, taking their ideas, using them to come up with such a complex building, it was a process. Then, of course, when we went onto the site and working with the contractors and subcontractors again, that was solving many different complexities with them, right down to the snagging of the building. The morning it opened, I came into the Museum of the Future, and I saw all the visitors in the lobby, lining up to go up into the elevator, going through the spaces, taking photographs, smiling, kids smiling, people being inspired by what they're seeing, inspired by the building. And actually it was a beautiful feeling of just being somebody unknown and walking through and just looking at the way people now are inhabiting this building and enjoying it. It's almost like, I suppose, if you're a magnificent chef or something, and the cooking is really, the pleasure is actually seeing people enjoying the building. And it marvels me every time I come here, like even this morning, and see everybody just experiencing it, and they love it. They really love this building, and that's important. That's the most important thing.
Sean, thanks for showing us around today. Great to speak with you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
That's all for this edition. I'm Dan Murphy on assignment for CNBC at Dubai's Museum of the Future. Thanks for watching.